Welcome everyone to tonight's ordinary meeting of Council on July the 10th, 2024, and to those in the gallery and staff and councillors. I'd just like to say that the City of Swan acknowledges the traditional custodians of this region, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. And we pay our respects to elders past and present and their descendants. The terms and conditions of entry into this meeting are posted on the door as you enter. Please ensure that you have read them prior to attending this meeting and abide by them. Tonight we have everyone in attendance and we have apologies, leave of absence from Councillor Knight and an apology from Councillor McCulloch and Councillor Howlett and also Councillor Bowman. We'll be a little bit late. Now I'll just ask if there's any declarations of financial and proximity interests and interests affecting impartiality. If anyone has any, could you please just fill out the form and hand them up to the CEO. If there's also any leave of absence, if you could hand those up as well, thank you. So move on to part 5, public question time. The questions and answers recorded in the minutes of the meeting may be summarised in accordance with the Local Government Administration Regulations of 1996. All questions received for this meeting have been answered and responded to and have been included in this schedule. And all questions will be published in the minutes of this meeting. Part 5.1, answers to questions which were taken on notice. We have nil. And part 5.2, questions relating to reports contained on the agenda. There were nil. And 5.2.1, questions of which due notice has been given. 5.2.2 are questions without due notice for items on the agenda only. Are there any questions from the gallery on the agenda? No? Let me move to 5.3. Other questions to items not contained in the agenda. Is there anyone in the gallery who wishes to ask questions tonight on items not contained in the agenda? No, thank you. We move to 5.3.1, questions of which due notice has been given. And 5.3.2, questions without due notice. All the questions have been taken on notice and those questions have been provided in your running sheet there. I'll ask if there's any member of the public wishing to ask a question on an item that's not on the agenda tonight. No? Thank you. And we move on to part 6, public statement time. Registration for public statement time at council meetings was required by 10 a.m. on Wednesday the 12th of June 2024. I think we have Miss Kirsty Griffin from Bullsbrook. Kirsty, if you'd just like to come to the lectern and just turn the microphone on. And you have 2 minutes, thank you. Just a little button there. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, that's loud. So I'm Kirsty Griffith here on behalf of my parents Dennis and Ellen Manuel from Bullsbrook. I wanted to bring to Council's attention the application DA 295-2024 from Midland Brick BGC to extract clay and extend their operations south with continued ability to blast. This pit is 1 kilometre east of Stock Road Great Northern Highway intersection. We've been informed this will be coming to you for vote. My family have owned this farm for 26 years and have had increased restrictions placed on them by this operation since 2007. Amenity, lifestyle and land value will be significantly affected by this application. It is 11 files filled with innuendo, vague terminology, conflicting statements and risk assessments and a 10-year-old blast plan. The Manuel's home is 135 metres from the proposed expansion. The operation and its buffer zones are in direct conflict with the State Strategic Plan for Housing and the City of Swan Bullsbrook Local Area Plan. While preparing an informed objection, there has been a very slow response from the Planning Office in Midland Brick to requests for studies quoted in the application, answers to general questions and requests for a stakeholder site visit. It's concerning that Midland Brick have submitted a 2013 blast plan to the Department of Mines, Industry, Regulation and Safety that does not account for the proximity of our homestead, an additional sensitive receptor built on the property in 2015, an approved new housing estate, the southern extension or increased extraction tonnage. Of note, there has been no active stakeholder engagement initiated at all by Midland Brick. I encourage councillors to please read objections in full. There has been an enormous effort put into them. Midland Brick should operate in the confines of their operation and not be permitted to impose emissions on properties in the area before the quarry existed. We do appreciate clay as an important resource, but we're entitled to amenity protection from billion-dollar companies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kirsty, for that public statement. Now we just move on to part 7, petitions. Councillor Catalano presented a petition containing 13 signatures relating to working with residents to beautify and maintain the roundabout and verges in Perella Court, Bennett Springs, which is to be tabled at this meeting on July 10th, 2024 at the ordinary meeting of council. And the recommendation was 1, referred to the CEO for consideration and response. The motion that council resolved to, that the petition be referred to the CEO for consideration and response, which it has. Mover, Councillor Miles, and a seconder, Councillor Jones. Thank you. Is there anyone against? No, it's carried. And move on to part 8, deputations. All deputations for items on the agenda were heard at the agenda forum held on July the 3rd, 2024. Part 9, we'd just like to welcome tonight our newest member to City of Swan, which is Dr. Sarah McQuaid, who is our Executive Director of Place and Stakeholder Relations. And congratulations on your first week this week, and looking forward to getting to know you more and spending more time. If you haven't met Dr. McQuaid, she's over here, and you can, I'm sure, make some time to come and see her. Leave of absence. Are there any councillors wishing to apply for leave of absence? We have one here, which is from Councillor Henderson from the 19th of July 2024 to the 4th of August 2024 inclusive. Thank you. Are there any other leave forms? No. If there are, just hand them up during the meeting. Thank you.
We need a motion to approve the leave of absence.
So is there a mover, Councillor Jones, a seconder, Councillor Zanino? Is there anyone against? That's carried. And move on to part 11, confirmation of minutes. Confirmation of minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on June the 12th, 2024. 11.2, confirmation of minutes of the special meeting of council held on June the 19th, 2024. And 11.3, confirmation of minutes of the special meeting of council held on June the 26th, 2024. Can I ask for a mover, please? Councillor Ringo, and a seconder? Councillor Dawn. Is there anyone against? That's carried, thank you. And move on to part 12. Business left over from the previous meeting if adjourned was nil. And now we move into 13, adoption of those recommendations contained in items not withdrawn. So for the benefit of community members observing the meeting, the council uses an en bloc method of decision making. And this means that agenda items where council supports the officer recommendation, they're not debated separately. So one vote is taken on all of the items, and the officer's recommendation is therefore the decision of council. The following items have not been withdrawn for individual consideration and will be dealt with via the en bloc vote, and therefore the officer recommendation will be the decision of council. Councillors, for your information, 14.2.1 Bullsbrook Local Area Plan has been withdrawn by Councillor Catalano. And so the items are 14.2.2, Draft Tree Protection and Management of Local Planning Policy. That's the approval to advertise. 14.3.2, Proposed Modification to Amendment number 195 to Local Planning Scheme number 17. And that was to rezone lot 912 Midland Road, Bushmead, from unzoned to special use zone number 14, LPS 17-195. We also have item 14.5.1, Financial Management Report for the period ended 31st of May 2024. 14.5.2, which is the list of accounts paid in May 2024. And 16.1, confidential item, which is deed of variation and extension to 98 Morrison Road, Midland, which is the Australia Post building. So I'm going to ask for a mover. Thank you very much, Councillor Miles. And is there a seconder? Councillor Zanino, thank you. Is there anyone against? So that's carried. Thanks, councillors. We move on to 14. Reports withdrawn for debate or absolute majority vote is required. The following reports have been withdrawn for debate in accordance with the Meeting Procedures Local Law 2023, and they'll be dealt with by council individually. So the first item we have is 14.1.1, which is the policy review, sports floodlighting, which you'll find on page 6. This is a proposed motion for Councillor Henderson. Councillor Henderson, if you'd like to read out your alternate motion, thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council resolve to 1. Adopt revised policy POLC 147 sports floodlighting with the following changes to 4.3A. The maintenance and renewal of all sport floodlighting and associated infrastructure on city land will be conducted by city staff or the city's appointed contractors unless otherwise in another legal agreement. 2, that the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to make any formatting, nomenclature or other minor changes to the policy during the period of its currency. And my reason is to accommodate situations where a legal agreement may be in place which requires an external party to maintain or renew sport lighting on city land.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Zanino? Is there anyone against? There's no one against. It's carried. And we move on to 14.1.2, which is the policy repeal, volunteering on page 12. Proposed motion from Councillor Henderson. If you'd like to read out your alternate motion, thanks, Councillor Henderson.
Thank you again, Mayor. I move that Council resolve to 1. Defer consideration of this matter to allow staff to prepare a revised policy in conjunction with interested councillors that reaffirms Council's support for volunteering and to recognise contemporary management practices. And my reason is that Council has a strong commitment to volunteering, and this should be reflected in establishing policy guidance. Matters that relate to operational oversight of volunteers should be dealt with in administrative procedures that support the policy position.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Jones. Is there anyone against? There's not. Carried. Thank you very much. We're moving through quite quickly. I move to 14.1.3, City of Swan Parking Local Law 2023 Amendment on page 19. This is an absolute majority required. And that is that Council resolves to 1, make the City of Swan Parking Amendment Local Law 2024 as attached. 2, complete the local law making process in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995. And I ask for a mover, Councillor Miles, and a seconder, Councillor Dawn. Thank you. Is anyone against? That carried. Thank you. And now we move back to the item that was withdrawn for debate, which is 14.2.1, the Bullsbrook Local Area Plan. I need someone to move the officer's recommendation. Councillor Miles and a seconder. Councillor Ringo, thank you. And does anyone wish to speak against it? Councillor Catalano, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Oops, my apologies. Councillor Miles, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'll just
Or the
quickly
officer's
say,
recommendation?
the city staff have taken a long time to develop this plan, and I want to thank them for their hard work, and I hope that council endorses their work with the community. Thank you.
And seconder, Councillor Ringo.
I just want to let council also know that please support this, the officer's recommendation, because I actually, as a ward councillor for Bullsbrook, actually did receive an email from residents in the Bullsbrook area, actually in support of this. As you may not be aware, but it was actually discussed yesterday at the Bullsbrook Rates and Residents Association meeting, and which an email actually came in, and it says, "Dear councillors, the Bullsbrook Local Area Plan 2024 was discussed this evening, 8th of July 2024, at the Bullsbrook Rates and Residents Association meeting. you know, Bra would like to thank the City of Swan for the opportunity to participate in consultation for the Bullsbrook LAP 2024. Whilst we would have hoped for a higher participation from the community, we feel that it was the best that could be achieved through this process. It could be put down to the lack of understanding of the process and an element of people being susceptible due to very little having been achieved for Bullsbrook during the previous lap period. We do see some extremely positive element within the document that is before councillors for adoption on the 10th of July 2024 council meeting. We therefore ask the council to approve the Bullsbrook LAP 2024 so that the city can proceed in implementing the priorities as indicated by the community. The Bullsbrook community looks forward to seeing some improvement to facilities and services as soon as possible. Councillors, I don't think I need to say more. We've heard straight from the community members. And so, yes, I would say please support the officer's recommendation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ringo. Ask, is anyone against? Councillor Catalano, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. The problem is that this local area plan basically contributes to sprawl. And I've spoken about the urban sprawl of Perth before, and I've spoken about it in the context of the recognised social, environmental and economic costs of ongoing urban sprawl. And it's not just here in Perth, it's right across the world. The eastern states are plagued with it. There are huge costs with this. Sprawl was actually supposed to have been dealt with decades ago, but as we can see, it continues. Sprawl, this particular sprawl, also contains industrial sprawl. An industrial area that is going to be 2.5 times the size of Malaga and Hazelmere combined, with poor road networks and impact on the Swan Valley. I'm not surprised there weren't more people that engaged, because I have spoken to people from Bullsbrook and they are extremely concerned about the urbanisation of Bullsbrook, about the environmental impacts on wetlands, on the Ellenbrook, on bushland, on their lifestyle, on the rural character of the area. When does it stop? Sprawl from Cervantes to Augusta. It stops here. It stops here with me tonight. I am not behest to any political party or any vested interests. I think it's time we looked at the future of our state and of Perth and contained the sprawl. And for that reason, I have to draw the line in the sand, and that is that I cannot accept that we're going to go ahead with more sprawl north of Ellenbrook. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Catalano. I was asking anyone for the motion. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to prolong this meeting, but I just had to do that. We've heard one side that wants to put us all back in the horse and buggy. Well, I'm pro-development. I think we all live in a house somewhere, and the fact of the matter is this city is growing and growing and growing. I think 3.5 million by 2050 was the plan, but it's probably going to be 2040 by the time that happens. And the fact of the matter is that the North East Corridor has been planned as part of the urban growth of the City of Swan for many, many years. Many years. Do we just simply stand up and say, no, you can't do that anymore? Absolutely not. People love Perth. People love to live in the City of Swan as well. And I think we should be encouraging the development not only of the facilities for people to live in, but those industrial areas where everyone is going to want to get a job. So, councillors. I do believe that we have got to be proactive in those areas. As for the sample size, I have been critical of sample sizes of our laps in the past, and I know just how hard it is to get people to engage. The numbers are a bit on the light side for this one, but it's a growing area and people are probably very busy doing other stuff. Within the term of our next review, we'll certainly find out if people aren't happy with this lap, and they'll be starting to say what they think, hopefully by then, and hopefully we can get them to engage more. But I fully support this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Is anyone against the motion? If there's no one else against, does anyone like to speak for or against the motion? If there's no one for or against, we'll write a reply.
That's me.
Councillor Miles, yeah, looking at
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors, for your contribution. I'd like to, echo Councillor Aringo's contribution as being a PS Ward councillor. Obviously, I'm not on the PS Ward, but obviously I'm passionate about these things because these laps are a combination of input from staff and community, basically connecting all the little elements that make up that community and its individual aspects, and acknowledging that a lot of the things that Councillor Catalano said in her speech about this plan contributes to urban sprawl and the like, well, frankly, that's a state government matter. We don't have control over those kind of planning outcomes. But what we do have control over as a local government is how we include our community in the future planning of that area. And in the Bullsbrook community priorities, noting your environmental concerns, number 4, the 4th priority is protecting the natural environment. That's obviously a big thing for the community in Bullsbrook, and it's something that the City of Swan is also concerned about. And just voting against this LAP would not achieve anything. I didn't see any alternate motion. So it'd be going backwards and depriving the community in Bullsbrook of a voice in planning. So I think it'd be really regressive to just say, oh, no LAP, after all that hard work the staff went through with the community that got involved. So I'd like to say we back it in and continue working with the community in future to have better outcomes for them all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? We had Councillor Dawn, Councillor Singh, Councillor Aringo, Councillor Jones, Councillor Miles, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Prodovnik, Councillor Johnson and myself. And those against? Councillor Catalano. So it's carried 10-1. Thank you. And move on to 14.2.3, Movida Estate Acoustic Wall on page 112. Proposed motion by Councillor Johnson. If you'd like
thank
to
you,
read
Madam
out
Mayor.
your alternate motion, thank you.
My motion is that Council resolve to note the findings of the investigation into the suggested noise mitigation treatments to the noise wall, defer deciding on implementing any noise mitigation treatments until the September 2024 ordinary meeting of Council to allow A, the cost of including Blackadder Road in the city's street tree planting programme with suitable sized native plants and the ongoing cost of watering and care to be provided to Council. B, the CEO to advise if the cost of acoustic cladding can be added to the city advocacy priority list. C, the affected residents to have more time to consider the content of this item in the agenda. D, Council to be advised of the affected residents' preferred acoustic treatment through feedback by the residents to the city prior to the September ordinary meeting of Council or to Council through deputations at that meeting. And the reason for the motion is Council has not been provided with the cost of tree planting on Blackadder Road. The state and federal governments should consider grant funding the acoustic cladding, and the affected residents should be given some time to read the report findings and meet as a community to provide their feedback to the Council before any noise mitigation decision is made.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. I'll ask for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Prodovnik.
Amendment?
Councillor Henderson.
Under 2B, after the word cost, could I ask the mover and seconder to consider adding the words and viability?
Yeah, sure.
Happy with that? Thank you. I'll ask, is there anyone?
The seconder needs to agree to.
Seconder agree, thank you. I'll ask if there's anyone who wishes to speak against the motion. There's no one to speak against the motion. That's carried. Thank you. And now move on to 14.3.1. Proposed local shopping centre lot 750 number 877 on Farrell Road at Janebrook, DA 571-22 on page 119. Proposed motion by Councillor Catalano. If you'd like to read out your alternate motion, thank you.
Thank you. That the council resolve to 1. Adopt the officer's recommendation with the following modification to condition 17. 17. Prior to a building permit being issued, the landscaping plan prepared by Waterwise Landscaping, dated 15th of January 2024, Rev 3, must be amended and approved by the City of Swan. The amendment must include the following: the trees located on the verge at roundabout and highlighted trees on the attached plan. It just doesn't seem right. Let me have a look at the actual amendment. Oh yes, okay. The trees located on the verge at roundabout, highlighted trees on the attached plan, must be relocated to prevent potential sightline issues. And this is the amendment. The plant species type should be amended with species which provide more shade and shall not include Sapium sebiferium, Chinese tallow, nor Olea europea, which is the olive, given the potential adverse impact of such invasive species on the adjoining Janebrook, and there's a bit missing on this motion, if you'd like to add it, which is actually included in the condition in the officer's report, and that is a reticulation plan. So it's and reticulation plan. And that's in the officer's report, so I don't particularly want to change that.
And your reason for motion?
The reason is that Sapium sebiferium, Chinese tallow, and Olea europea, so it's not nor, take nor out please, just put and, are non-native and, well it's not they are invasive and become, just take out the word can please, and become invasive to native habitats. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Yes.
Councillor Dawn. Does anyone like to speak against the motion?
A question of staff, if I can.
Question?
The plants listed by Councillor Catalano, have staff or the applicant considered those, and are they in fact a threat as outlined in a serious manner that can't be contained or dealt with?
Through you, Mr. Jacoby, if you're able to answer that question.
Oh, sorry, I don't have that information on hand. I don't know if the planning team can assist.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The information was provided by Councillor Catalano on the basis that these types of trees are invasive. And look, I think it's fair to say that in many instances a tree or plant species that's not native to an area may be classified as a weed. So certainly if they're not native to Western Australia, then it's fair to say that their incorporation into an environment where they might propagate into a native area of vegetation adjoining the Janebrook could be described as invasive.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Further question? No? I'll just ask again, is there any councillors who wish to speak against the motion? No? That's carried. And move on to 14.4.1, which is the Kingsmeadow Oval Foreshore Restoration, which is on page 303. Councillor Johnson, if you'd like to read out your alternate motion, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. My motion is to defer a decision on the proposed Kingsmeadow Master Plan, as developed with the DBCA, until the OCM of 9th of October 2024 to allow the City to undertake further consultation about the Master Plan with the community and user groups, traditional custodians and other stakeholders, And the reason for the motion is that local residents only found out about the proposed solution a few days prior to the agenda forum. The design apparently does not address some of the concerns of the local community. Final stakeholder consultation may identify changes to make the master plan more acceptable.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Budovnik? And I'll ask, is there anyone against the motion? No one against the motion? It's carried. And then we move on to item 14.5.3, which is the sale of land, rates and charges outstanding for more than 3 years, which you'll find on page 411. Councillor Budovnik, if you'd like to read out your alternate motion.
Actually, I just wanted to, through you, Madam Mayor, just refer to section 8.1C of our meeting procedures, local law, and I just wanted to ask your consent to move the alternative motion that I submitted today.
Thank you. Is that acceptable? Just get some governance advice. Is that possible to do? It is. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion is that Council resolve to, in accordance with Local Government Act 1995 and pursuant to section 6.56 and 6.64, to proceed to sell the properties listed hereunder which have rates and charges in arrears for 3 or more years and recover from the proceeds of the sale outstanding balances. Assessment number 1, 187,536 and assessment number 2, 189,041. 2, instruct the bailiff to not proceed to sell the properties listed hereunder in section 2, which is 1, 414,951 and 2, 198,228. 3, to authorise the CEO to act on Council's behalf or to authorise an agent to sign a contract of sale for the properties listed in Table 1. 4, note that any further default on the agreed payment plans for those properties on Table 2 will result in a report to Council to sell the properties in accordance with Section 664 and Section 668 of the Local Government Act. And the reason for the motion is that the property in Altone, 414,951, has paid their rates in full. And 2, the property in Pearce, 198,228, has entered into an acceptable payment plan with the city, and this will result in the outstanding debt being cleared this month.
Thank you very much, Councillor Budovnik. Is there a seconder? Councillor Johnson. And I'll ask if there's anyone against the motion. Question?
Oh, sorry.
Could I just ask the staff if there has been any last minute updates on the other properties in terms of their rates repayment situation?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there hasn't been any update. There's been no contact. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll ask again, are there any councillors who wish to speak against the motion? If not, it's carried. Goodness, that's quite a quick meeting tonight. And we're now moving to part 15, which is motions of which previous notice have been given. We have nil. And part 16, confidential items, they're also nil. And part 17, notice of motions for consideration at the following meeting if given during the meeting. I just remind the deadline for submissions will be 5 p.m. on Wednesday the 24th of July 2024. And I'd just like to thank everybody in the gallery who's come in tonight and those that came earlier who've listened, and also thank staff tonight and councillors. And I close this meeting at 6:35. Thank you.